Okay, so today we're going to jump into the wild world of Funko.
All right.
Those little collectible figures that you see
Yeah.
everywhere these days.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't escape them.
You really can't. And
And you shouldn't want to.
and maybe you shouldn't want to. That's a good point.
They're fun.
Yeah, and we wanted to do a deep dive on Funko because, our listeners are always looking for ways to get up to speed quickly on
Yeah,
some of these companies. And so
totally.
we thought, what better way to do that than to go straight to their investor presentation and look
Right to the source.
what they are saying about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the best way to understand a business, to go straight to what they're telling investors and potential investors
Yeah.
about their business and how they see the future and all that stuff.
Yeah, and this one is visually very rich, so there's a
Uh-oh.
lot of logos we're going to talk about.
So many logos.
Yeah, we're going to mention brands like, The Simpsons, House of the Dragon Wednesday.
Yeah.
Um, musical artists like Doja Cat, Sabrina Carpenter,
Some sports teams in there too.
sports teams, yeah, MLS, Manchester United.
Uh-huh.
Gaming titles like World of Warcraft, Minecraft.
Huge.
Yeah, huge brands. And we're going to talk all about those and even events like Comic-Con International.
Yeah.
And so,
A good mix.
yeah, the real goal here is to try to understand where they are now, where they see themselves going in the future, and like what are the key parts of their business and how does it work?
Yeah, their strategy for growth is
Exactly.
a big piece of this.
Yeah, so let's start from the beginning. Funko,
Sure.
they're a leading player in the consumer products space. They're a pop culture consumer products company,
Right.
which I think we kind of knew that already. But just to put some numbers on this, they were founded way back in 1998,
Wow.
which I was surprised by. I thought they were newer than that.
Yeah, they've been around for a minute.
They really have. And then they went public in 2017. That's what IPO means, in case anyone doesn't know, initial public offering.
Yep.
And they're headquartered in Everett, Washington.
Interesting.
I don't know a ton about Everett, Washington,
Me neither, but hey.
but hey, they're there. And I think a lot of people, when they think of Funko, they think of those pop vinyl figures,
Yeah, the big heads,
the big heads,
the
yeah.
little bodies.
Yeah, but they actually have a lot more to their business than that.
They do. They do.
So they're also in like the pop culture fashion space. They have this brand called Loungefly.
Oh, yeah, the backpacks and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
purses and stuff like that.
I've seen those, yeah. And then they've also got high-end collectible figures, and then they even have like limited edition art prints and vinyl records.
Wow, I didn't even know about the art prints and vinyl records.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's pretty interesting, and I think it's smart because they're really positioning themselves in this growing collectibles market, and they're sort of like a hub that connects fans with
Yeah.
like all the stuff they love. So entertainment, sports, music, gaming,
It's all about fandom
it's all about fandom.
and self-expression.
Wow.
It's like how do you express your love for a certain movie or TV show or whatever it is?
Yeah.
You buy the Funko Pop or the Loungefly bag,
Exactly.
or you get the art print for your wall.
You get the art print.
Yeah.
It's a way to show your love.
Absolutely.
So I think we should look at the numbers because they are a public company, so they share
Yeah, let's dive in.
their financials. So just to give you a snapshot of where they were in 2024, they reported net sales of $1.05 billion,
That's huge.
which is pretty big.
Yeah.
That shows you the reach that they have in the market.
Okay.
And then their adjusted EBITDA, which is a measure of profitability, was $95 million,
Okay.
which is a healthy number. And then they also have a pretty big workforce with 1,283 full-time employees as of 2024.
Got it.
So just wanted to give you some of those numbers because I think it helps to understand the scale of this company.
Definitely.
And then looking at sort of where their sales come from geographically, about 65% of their revenue comes from the U.S. market.
Okay.
And then international markets make up the remaining 35%. So that gives you a sense of kind of where they're strong and where they're
Yeah, where there's room for growth.
looking to grow. Exactly. Yeah. And then if we break down their sales by product brand, we talk about how they have all these different offerings, but the core collectibles, which is mainly the pop vinyl figures,
Yeah.
that's still their bread and butter.
Right.
That generated 77% of their sales in 2024.
Wow. That's still the big one.
It's still a big one.
Yeah.
Loungefly, which is their fashion division, is a solid 16%.
Yeah.
So that's doing well. And then all other product lines combined make up the remaining 7%. So it's interesting to see kind of that breakdown.
Yeah, you can see where their focus is.
Exactly. Yeah. And then how they get those products to the consumers. 76% of their sales are through wholesale channels.
Right.
So that's like selling to, big retailers and things like that.
Yep.
But their direct-to-consumer business is a growing piece of the pie, and that's 24% of their sales.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that means selling directly to consumers through their website or their own stores.
Right.
So that's a trend. We see a lot of companies moving towards that, more direct.
Yeah, cutting out the middleman.
Cutting out the middleman, exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some of the things that make Funko really stand out in this space. Like, what are some of their core strengths?
Yeah, what are they good at?
What are they good at? Yeah, and I think the first thing is that they have just this incredibly broad and engaged consumer base. Like, they really have built a community of enthusiasts around these collectibles.
They have, and it's a very passionate community, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans are really into it.
It's not just a casual thing.
No, they're collectors.
Yeah, they're collectors.
They're going to Comic-Con.
They're waiting in line
they're waiting in line.
to get the special edition.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they've really nurtured this avid collector community. They have a loyalty program that has over 280,000 members, which is
A lot of loyal customers.
a lot of loyal customers.
Yeah.
And then they've got big engagement through events. They do a lot of events. They're at Comic-Con, obviously.
Yeah.
And then their social media presence is massive, and they have millions of followers across platforms. So clearly reaching a lot of people there.
So they're really good at connecting with fans.
Yeah.
And building that community.
And I think one of their biggest assets is their portfolio of licensed properties. It's just massive.
It's huge. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's like over 900 active licensed properties.
Yeah.
And they have partnerships with like 250 content providers.
Wow.
And it's across movies, TV, music, sports, anime, gaming, you name it, they've got it.
It's everything. Yeah.
And you can see all these logos in their presentation. It's just like a who's who of pop culture.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And I think that's one of the things that makes them so successful, because they're not betting on any one particular property or genre.
Yeah, they're diversified.
They're diversified, exactly. So if something falls out of favor, they've got
other stuff to fall back on.
1,000 other things.
Exactly.
But of course, managing all those licenses is probably a headache.
Yeah, I can imagine.
In and of itself. But it seems to be working for them.
It is.
And then the other thing is they're not just about having the licenses, it's about getting the products into the hands of fans. And they're really good at that too.
Yeah.
They have this highly diversified distribution network, so they sell directly to consumers through their website and their own stores. But they also sell through, mass market retailers, e-tailers, specialty stores, international distributors. They've got over 1,400 retail partners globally.
Wow, that's a lot of partners.
It's a lot, yeah.
So they're everywhere.
They are. Yeah. And then they're also starting to leverage their own non-licensed intellectual property more and more. So they have this Pop Yourself line, which is all about personalized products, which we'll get into more detail later.
Okay, cool.
But it's interesting that they're kind of building up their own
brands.
Their own thing, yeah.
Alongside the licensed stuff.
Alongside all the licensed stuff.
Right.
So let's talk about consumer engagement, because they're clearly doing something, right? They have all these fans.
Yeah, they're really good at that.
So their target demographic is pretty broad. It's 18 to 55 years old.
Okay.
Average age of 40.
Right.
And it leans slightly female, 55% female, 45% male.
Interesting.
So it's not just like a boys club or anything like that.
It's
like
pretty balanced.
It's pretty balanced, yeah.
Which is good.
And they connect with their fans through all those digital platforms. We talked about their loyalty program, social media, and then those pop culture events. Like they have a Funko Hollywood store.
Yeah.
And they have a big presence at Comic-Con. Right. So they're really meeting fans where they are.
Absolutely.
And one thing that's really interesting is this trend of the growing kidult market.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so kidult is basically consumers age 12 and older who are buying toys.
Okay.
And this is a huge market. It was a $12 billion market in the U.S. alone in 2024, and it grew 10%.
Wow.
In that year.
So adults are buying toys for themselves.
Adults are buying toys for themselves, or maybe their kids, but
right.
But it's not just, kids driving this market.
I guess we never really grow out of it, do we?
It's not.
That's cool.
And the EU5 countries also saw 5% growth in that same demographic.
Right.
And then globally licensed toy sales grew 8% and now account for 34% of the total toy market.
That's a big chunk.
It's a big chunk. Yeah, so just interesting to see that those beloved characters and brands.
Mm.
They have a lasting appeal.
Yeah, nostalgia is a powerful thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about their growth trajectory because, they've been around for a while. They've seen some ups and downs.
Yeah.
They've seen some periods of very rapid growth from fiscal year 2017 to 2024.
Okay.
And then more recently, they've kind of stabilized a bit.
Right.
But they're very open about the fact that they're moving into a new chapter.
Interesting.
And they've laid out 4 strategic pillars for this next phase of growth.
Okay, we have those.
Yeah. So the first one is delighting their core fans.
Okay, makes sense.
The second is attracting new fans.
Yep.
The third is selling where fans are.
Uh-huh.
And the fourth is improving the overall fan experience.
So it sounds like after this period of really fast growth,
Yeah.
they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we keep this momentum going?
Yeah.
How do we keep growing in a sustainable way?
Right. How do we not just rest on our laurels?
Yeah.
And they've made some big changes. They brought in a whole new management team,
Oh, wow.
including an interim CEO who has a history of kind of guiding companies through turnarounds.
Okay, interesting.
And they made some tough decisions. They reduced the number of products they offer by 30%,
Oh, wow.
which is what's known as SKU reduction.
Yeah.
Stock keeping unit reduction.
Less is more sometimes.
Yeah, less is more. And they decreased their inventory levels by over 50%.
Okay.
And they also did a lot of cost cutting. They optimized their U.S. distribution center. They renegotiated freight costs.
So they really streamline things.
They really streamlined things.
Yeah.
And then they appointed a new permanent CEO.
Okay.
And they made some strategic decisions, like they divested their games business.
Oh, interesting.
So they're really focusing on their core,
Their core competency.
yeah, collectibles.
Double collectibles, yeah.
And they've also been working to reduce their debt. So they've made a lot of changes.
It sounds like a lot of change, yeah.
Yeah, in a short period of time.
But it sounds like positive change.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to right the ship and move in the right direction. And they're seeing some positive results from that. Their newer product lines, Bitty Pop and Pop Yourself, those are starting to contribute more to their sales.
Okay.
Together, they make up about 10% of total sales now.
Got it.
And their direct-to-consumer business has doubled in size since 2022.
Wow, that's impressive.
So that's really growing. And importantly, they returned to profitability in 2024.
That's always good
That's always good, yeah.
for a business.
So they're clearly making some progress.
Yeah.
So let's dive into their formula for growth, which, as I mentioned, is all about intentional diversification.
Okay. I like that intentional diversification.
Yeah, it's not just random. It's
Yeah.
like they've got a plan.
Strategy.
A strategy, exactly. So the first part of this is fandom expansion, and they're focusing on 3 massive areas: sports, gaming, and music.
Okay, so they're going beyond just movies and TV shows.
Beyond just the traditional,
Right.
pop culture stuff.
Yeah.
So sports is a huge market, $35 billion in 2023. Global fan base of 3.7 billion people.
That's a lot of potential customers.
It's a lot of potential customers.
Yeah.
They even highlighted in their presentation that their top-selling item in 2024 was a Jason Kelce pop.
Oh, wow.
So that shows you the power of
The sports fans.
the sports fans. They're
Yeah.
dedicated.
Yeah. And their strategy for sports involves getting new licenses. So they're signing deals with college athletes like Juju Watkins, who's a big
Okay, all right.
basketball star.
Cool.
They're doing regional marketing strategies, so really targeting specific fan bases.
Yeah.
And they're even exploring sales opportunities within stadiums. So,
Oh, wow.
going where the fans are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they had some really interesting logos in their presentation. So MLS, Manchester United, they even had a lounge fly bag that was designed with a sports theme.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So they're really
Going all in on sports.
going all in on sports.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, how do they decide which channels to prioritize?
Right, because there's so many options.
There's so many, especially with sports. You've got all these different leagues and teams and
And athletes and, yeah. It's overwhelming.
And you don't want to spread yourself too thin.
Exactly. And you don't want to dilute your brand either by
Right.
being everywhere.
Yeah, you want to be strategic about it.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how they
navigate that.
navigate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next big area is gaming, which is another enormous market.
Oh, yeah.
$420.7 million in merchandise sales in 2023 and 3.3 billion gamers worldwide.
Wow, that's a lot of gamers.
It's a lot of
Yeah,
gamers,
yeah,
and they're really focused on reaching younger generations with this.
makes sense.
So they're partnering with like the big video game studios and also tabletop gaming companies.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they had some cool logos in their presentation, World of Warcraft, Minecraft. They even had a Diablo pop figure.
I love Diablo.
So yeah, they're really showing that they're serious
Yeah, they're committed to gaming.
about gaming.
For sure.
And then the third area is music, which is a $16 billion global merchandise opportunity by 2030.
Wow.
And we've seen this resurgence of vinyl records,
Yeah.
which I think is really interesting. They saw a 17% revenue increase in 2024.
Vinyl is back.
Vinyl is back, and Funko is trying to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
So they're creating artist-inspired products for live events. They're catering to that younger demographic.
Okay.
They mentioned Doja Cat, Sabrina Carpenter.
Oh, cool.
And they even had a Prey vinyl record featured in their materials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they're really hitting all the major areas of pop culture.
They really are.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
It is.
Okay, so the second pillar of their growth strategy is to sell where the fans are,
Okay.
which means going beyond traditional retail.
Right.
So we're talking theme parks, movie theaters, stadiums, transportation hubs, music festivals, esports events, conventions, college bookstores.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, even TikTok Shop,
Wow.
which is a big social commerce platform.
Yeah, that's where the young people are.
That's where the young people are, yeah.
Yeah.
And their direct-to-consumer channel is a big part of this. So that's 24% of their gross sales in 2024, and it's doubled since 2022.
So they're really focusing on building that direct relationship with customers.
Exactly. They're cutting out the middleman.
Yep.
So that's something to watch, for sure.
Yeah.
The third component of their growth formula is product diversification. So they're coming up with new product lines and expanding existing ones.
Right.
And Bitty Pop is a big part of this. It's tapping into the minifigures market, which is a $15 billion industry in 2023.
Okay, so like even smaller than the regular pops.
Even smaller, yeah.
Yeah.
They're less than an inch tall.
Wow, that's tiny.
Super tiny.
Yeah.
And they're expanding both licensed and non-licensed Bitty Pop offerings.
Okay.
They're improving the display options in stores. They're introducing new unboxing experiences and exclusive items for certain retailers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they showed some pictures of the Bitty Pop packaging and the figures themselves, and they're really cute.
I bet they are.
Yeah, they're very collectible.
Yeah.
And then there's Pop Yourself, which is all about personalization.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, so they have online custom builders. They have in-store kiosks. They do event activations where you can create your own pop.
That's cool.
And this is interesting because they're charging a higher price point for this.
Okay.
Standard pops start around $15. Pop Yourself starts at $30.
Got it.
So they're seeing higher profit margins on that.
Makes sense.
And it's also positioned as a more unique, personalized gifting option.
Yeah, that's a good idea, especially for like holidays and birthdays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that over 80% of Pop Yourself customers are new to Funko.
Oh, wow.
So it's bringing in new customers.
That's great.
And it's a top-selling item in their own stores and online, so it's clearly a successful...
So it's a real growth driver for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the fourth and final pillar of their growth strategy is international expansion. So they already have a pretty big international presence. 35% of their revenue comes from outside the U.S.
Uh-huh.
They have over 300 international trademarks, more than 50 distributors.
So they're already global.
They are, but they see even more opportunity for growth.
Okay.
Because they recognize that different cultures have different interests.
Right.
And collectibles are popular all over the world.
Yeah.
So their international growth strategy involves establishing partner and licensed retail stores,
Okay.
working with third-party distributors, and building a local presence in key regions. So they mentioned Mexico, Europe, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East.
Got it.
And they actually already have 3 licensed retail stores in the Middle East, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So they're really thinking globally.
Yeah. They're not just a U.S. company anymore.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about one more thing that they're focusing on, which is expanding blind box offerings.
Blind box. What is that?
Yeah, so blind box is basically a product where you don't know what you're going to get until you open it.
Oh, like a surprise.
Like a surprise, yeah.
Right.
And this is a growing market globally. It was valued at $14 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach $39 billion by 2033.
Wow. That's a big market.
It's a big market, yeah, and Funko is trying to get a piece of that.
Makes sense.
So they're offering blind boxes in different formats, like countdown calendars, mystery minis bitty pop, and potentially even new product lines.
Okay.
And the appeal of blind boxes is really that element of surprise.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, you don't know what you're going to get, and so it's exciting to open them.
Mm-hmm.
And people often want to collect the whole set, so they keep buying more.
Right, like the thrill of the hunt.
The thrill of the hunt.
Yeah.
And there's also a trading culture that develops around these.
Oh, cool.
Because people are trying to get the ones they want and trade with each other.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Funko showed some examples like a Funko soda can and a mystery pot box.
Yeah.
And they're really leaning into this trend.
I bet it's profitable, too, because, people are buying multiples to try to get the one they want.
You're not just buying one, you're buying several.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
And when we think about Funko's overall position, I think there are some key takeaways.
Okay.
They have these diverse sales channels.
Yeah.
They have a really strong and engaged base of core collectors.
Mm-hmm.
They have significant potential for growth in international markets.
Absolutely.
And they have a new management team that's focused on results.
Right.
They're not afraid to make tough decisions.
Yeah, they're making changes.
They're making changes.
Yeah.
And we can't forget the power of the pop culture ecosystem that they operate within and these passionate fans who are really driving their success.
Yeah, the fans are everything.
Fans are everything.
Yeah.
And then they've got these innovative product line extensions like Pop Yourself and Bitty Pop, which are really helping them grow and improve their margins.
Yeah, those are smart moves.
Yeah.
Diversifying their product line.
Yeah. And they're also really smart to be tapping into that growing adult market.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of the growth is happening.
Absolutely.
So they're coming off of a period of financial improvement, and they're really aiming to return to sustained growth.
So they're on the right track.
They seem to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it'll be really interesting to watch them over the next few years.
Yeah, to see what they do next.
To see what they do next,
Yeah, and how these trends play out.
Exactly. And that kind of leads me to a final thought for our listeners.
Okay.
Given Funko's incredibly diverse range of licenses and their multifaceted growth strategies, what emerging trends in pop culture do you think will have the biggest impact on their future success?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's something to think about.
It is.
It's a dynamic landscape.
It is for sure.
So we'll have to see what happens. All right, that's it for our deep dive on Funko.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me.
This was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.